If you've ever wondered what it actually takes to become a physiotherapist, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to share my journey from UCAS up until where I am now, 2 years post-grad. My name is Mariah, I'm a rotational physiotherapist, and here on my channel I post things physiotherapy, lifestyle and travel related. So if you're interested in that, subscribe, turn the notification button all so you don't miss a video. So there's several reasons as to why I chose to become a physiotherapist. One of the big ones being I want to help people. The other being the ability to incorporate exercise into your sessions, and that is your main form of rehabilitation. In fact, that is a very broad profession. Not many physios are alike in terms of like our interests and just how we work. We create our own paths in terms of like, you know, you can open your clinic, you can do etc. But like, there's so many areas that you wouldn't expect to see a physiotherapist in, which I love it. There's so many different things that we can do. So those are like some of the reasons as to why I picked the profession. Now, regarding UCAS, so some of these things may sound a bit repetitive to some of you guys if you've seen my video where I kind of went a quick snapshot from GCSE up until my masters, or those of you who've been following me for a while. But those of you who are new, my UCAS journey was interesting in the sense because I applied for the master's degree, I didn't necessarily have to go through UCAS. The only university I applied through UCAS for was St George's, and I applied for 6 different universities and the rest were direct to them. So at the time, I had already just completed my undergraduate degree in sport and exercise science, which gave me the prerequisites to be able to apply for the master's. Then you're probably wondering why I didn't go for the undergraduate degree. It's just because I didn't want to do 3 years of studying again when I'd already just finished 4 years of studying. So it wasn't really appealing to me, and also I didn't receive the undergraduate requirements to go down that path right away. Now, when applying, like I said, I applied for 6 different unis, and it was hard because I only received feedback from 4 of the unis. And what I mean by that is one of the unis didn't even like get an interview or anything like that. It was just straight up, you don't have enough experience, boom, no, not interested. Bear in mind, at the time I was applying, it was also during the, I've been told you can't say the word on YouTube, but it was in 2020. So during that period of time, so gathering experience isn't something that was really realistic and easy to do considering the state of the hospitals at the time and what they were prioritizing. It wasn't exactly work experience. So that was difficult. Another one, it was just, no, okay, fair enough. I had an interview for one that started in January entry, and then the others were September entries. For the January entry one, I did receive an offer as well. It was a new course. I decided to decline the offer just because it was a new course. I would have been the first cohort and I didn't really feel comfortable with that. Like I thought I would have, but yeah, I just changed my mind. I had an interview for London South Bank, I had an interview for St George's, and I had an interview for the University of Birmingham. Now to see my responses and how long all of that took in terms of the time between applying, interview and hearing back. I've done a whole video on that, so I will tag that in the cards above and I can put it down in the description below for you guys to check out if that's what you're interested in. But I remember when I was applying and when I thought about becoming a physiotherapist, I always had a big desire to be like, I'm going to study in London University, I'm going to go to St George's, because, you know, 24 hours a day knee, it's going to be awesome. And yeah, it was hard when it came to applying, like obviously proving to people that like my sport and exercise science degree really helped me not just know the anatomy side of stuff, but also helped me get the foundations to become a good physiotherapist. I found during my undergraduate degree, I was also volunteering. I was doing St John's Ambulance on the side as well, doing first aid for them as well, just so I could get some exposure to different like populations, some like, you know, different tasks, different skill sets and stuff like that. And the hard thing about when applying for UCAS is like, well, not even just UCAS, when applying for university period, you've really got a reason as to how this degree is going to benefit you, what you're going to bring to the table, why you would make a good physiotherapist. Anyway, obviously I'm here now, so I got offers. Yeah, like I said, I got 4 offers, and in the end I went with the University of Birmingham, which many of you already know. Now, when it came to the interviews, how I felt at the time, so one was over the phone, which was London South Bank at the time. I was like pretty chill. I feel like looking back on that, it's pretty chill. The videos probably say otherwise. I was pretty chill at the time. The questions weren't too hard. I felt very prepared. As I said before, I did different personal statements for each university. If you're applying through UCAS, you can't do that. It's only one personal statement for all the universities, which is why I applied directly to many of the universities but St George's, just because they only went through UCAS. But I found applying directly to universities at a master's level, you can't do this for undergraduate degree, to my understanding. It allowed me to tailor it to each uni, obviously being like, oh, okay, at the time, it was like, okay, Birmingham, I hear you're going to help with the Commonwealth Games. That's something that I would like to participate in, like in terms of aiding with volunteering, get involved in that sense. So those are bits I could tweak, and which you didn't have the opportunity to do if I went through UCAS. I found once I had the time I had my interviews, Birmingham was my last interview. I'd had St George's before then, and I had London South Bank. So at that point of when I came up to my Birmingham interview, I had already guaranteed that I was going to become a physiotherapist because I had London South Bank's offer. I was stressing about St George's because I hadn't heard anything, and I was waiting a while. And as regards to Birmingham, I was thinking in my head, okay, well, if I've been turned down by all these other unis that if you're looking at the leaderboard at the time, weren't as high as St George's and Birmingham, it made me think to myself, then why would St George's or Birmingham want me? It was really stressing me out and everything. So I'd say self-doubt started to seep in at that point, which was really hard. So I'd say my biggest tip for people when it comes to this stage is really don't take it to heart when you get certain feedback as well. Obviously, bear it in mind, move forward with it, but don't feel like this defines you and it means you're never going to become a physio. If you really want it, push hard, And then obviously I got into the degree, and now when it came to my periods of training, the master's is a 2-year degree. It's a condensing version of the undergraduate degree, which is 3 years, or now I believe turning into 4 years in some places. But hey, so the way it was structured was in the first year, it was mostly theory based. So we had 2 placements, and then we had 4 placements in the second year alongside our dissertation. And it was nice to do it that way in the sense that I got it out of the way, but it was hard to balance things at times. While I was studying in Birmingham, I worked in London on the side, not necessarily because I needed to work, but it was more so because I liked to travel, and it gave me the freedom to do so because I was getting more money coming in. And I'm not sure if you know, but when it comes to placements, you can get the NHS bursary at the time. I'm pretty sure it's still a thing. And the NHS bursary gave you £5,000, but that would go towards your placements and your travel, and you'd pay out of pocket first, and then you'd have to claim it back. But in many cases, it's not like you claim it back on Friday and you get it back in your pocket the following Friday. It's usually months. So having a job was ideal for me to keep the money up. I know some other people also worked as well, but they worked as therapy assistants, whereas I worked in hospitality. So different in that sense, but it's in the masters I wouldn't advise. It's if you can avoid working, don't work, because it's a lot to balance. So I found there were periods where I was really stressed and everything, and then there were periods where I wanted for myself to be I want to get distinction or a merit or whatnot. In the end, I got passed. No one cares. No one asks me anything when it comes to jobs. It doesn't define you as a physiotherapist. And at the end of the day, I was kind of I was stressing myself out with grades, and felt like either way, as long as I pass, I could still register to be a physio and put my focus into placements, because that's where you're going to learn all the hands-on skills that you're going to take forward anyway, versus what you're going to read in the book. So that's my kind of standpoint on it. But looking back on it, the way that Birmingham had us reflect on each placement, we had a document where we would do a SWOT analysis or SWOT analysis on each placement, and what we're going to take forward to the next one, and what we need to develop on the next one. and looking back you can see the growth. So that was like really nice to look back at the end of the 2 years how far I'd come and the type of like clinician I turned into. So that was really nice. But I like I said, it's hard balancing placements, especially balancing placements alongside gathering data for your dissertation, alongside working, coursework, personal life. If you're in a relationship, managing your relationship, you want to spend time with your friend, yeah, traveling. Bear in mind, you're not really going to get a summer because you're on placement during the summer, so bye-bye summers. Things like that. That was hard. But I got through it, and when I finished, I decided to work in the NHS. Now, I've always had the desire of working in the NHS. I feel like, for me, I couldn't imagine myself to be private at the time. I still don't know how I feel about private working right now, but that's how I was feeling then. And finding work in the NHS at the time was very different to how it is now. I understand it's very hard, the hiring freeze and everything. But at the time when I was applying, I applied a couple months before, I think. Applied for my job in like March, had it secured, went on travelling, and then didn't start until like September. Yeah, September time. I personally opted to go for rotational physiotherapy, physiotherapist role versus a static physiotherapist role, because I felt like I enjoyed getting to get a taster of everything on placements, and this is an opportunity for me to grow into a more well-rounded physiotherapist. Even though naturally once you become static, you tend to lose some of the skills to an extent. But that's the route I chose to take for myself. Now, I'd say, obviously people want to know, like, did I have any imposter syndrome or anything like that? There were points in times, I would say initially I didn't go into it thinking, oh my god, I'm out of my depth here. I went into it thinking, okay, you hired me for a reason, I've clearly impressed you. I wouldn't have been hired if you didn't think I could do the job. Now, it's just a mindset thing, in my opinion, when it comes to the imposter syndrome and stuff. It's like, yeah, however you see yourself going into it. So if you go into it being like, I was hired for a reason, I'm confident, I know what I know, and I'll admit what I don't know, there's nothing to be scared about in that sense. And the role of a rotational physiotherapist at band 5 level, you're there to learn. So people don't expect you to come knowing everything. If you knew everything, you wouldn't be at this level, you know? So say that. In terms of other things about transitioning into the NHS, the NHS is obviously, when training, I'm not sure how many other universities are, but like when I trained, I didn't necessarily mingle with like occupational therapists or speech and language therapists and whatnot, or like doctors like that. But when you go into the NHS, you've got all this MDT that you may not have known about before, that you've got to mingle with and learn how to work alongside, and what their role does and how it can aid your sessions or aid your plan. Which, if you're not understanding that or you haven't had exposure to that, I can imagine it's very hard. That's why I made sure while I was training, when I was on placements, I'd asked to spend time with the speech and language therapist, the occupational therapist, the doctors, the nurses, etc., to get a better understanding about what they did and how we crossed over to an extent. So those are things I would definitely take forward to help you with your transition over. Like I said, I've been working for 2 years now. In my 2 years, I'm currently on my 5th rotation. I've rotated in complex, so like elderly care, gen med, elderly care, acute med, respiratory, stroke, and on orthopedics currently. And each rotation, I've gathered something that either helps me learn about myself or what type of physiotherapist I want to become, or skills that help me be able to assess certain things that I wasn't able to assess before, or feel more comfortable with certain things that I wasn't comfortable with before. So there are struggles also with placement, with rotations as well, in the sense that you go into a rotation and pretty early on know that it's not for you, but you're there, so that's hard. Let's say another hard thing is, obviously, when you're studying, it's easier to be like, oh, I need some study leave or some time to do reflections and whatnot. But when you're obviously working, there's no one prompting you for these reflections, there's no one prompting you for this. You really have to be independent about your CPD, and it's part of your HCPC regulations or requirements to keep on top of your CPD as well. So navigating that has been hard to an extent, I would say, especially when I took that period of being a band 6 or a secondment. Navigating not only myself but also supporting someone else has been, well, it had been difficult at the time, on top of being like a CSP steward. So getting involved in so many things because you want to build yourself, but also you want to support others, and to grow up to those higher bands, you need to show that like you're an autonomous worker, but you also know how to support other people. You're involved in projects, audits. You're also like reflecting on your own practice, and you're taking on students, or you're being a preceptor, preceptor and stuff like that. It's so much that I don't think people realize that you're not just dealing with patients, like you're dealing with so many other things as well if you want to grow. You know, it's like, that's one thing I would say that I'm trying to wrap my head around, trying to get involved in so many things, which is great and looks lovely and sounds lovely, and it's an experience that I probably wouldn't get elsewhere if I didn't like put myself in certain positions. But it is difficult to navigate, I would say. But in terms of, to wrap this up, biggest lessons I've learned is to be self-aware, like be honest. As I said before, be honest about what you don't know or what you would like to know. Be open. I know I've said numerous times there's certain areas that I like about, but if you're given the opportunity to try it, just try and dip your toe in. You might be surprised about things you can take away from them. I would say CPD can be many different things. It's not just reflections. Technically, I could class this as CPD talking to you guys, and when I do my reflections and stuff, I'd say those are things that I definitely take away. Other big things I've learned for myself is to put myself out there a bit more. Like I said, when opportunities arise, try and jump on them, grasp it. I've been on interview panels and stuff like that, things that I didn't think I would be able to go on to. I'd say obviously when you're coming towards the end of your degree, look at job applications in terms of, even if you don't feel ready to apply it, see what they want so you know what to work towards. That's what I'm doing in terms of seeing what they want for band 6s, and I'm working towards to try and achieve those things. So when I go for interviews, I can put my best foot forward and be a desirable candidate. So those are the things I would say take forward with you. And if you're really determined to become a physiotherapist, I'm sure it will work out for you. There are many different ways to go about it. But I hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch you guys in another one.